I call the February meeting of the Park and Recreation Advisory Board to session. May we have roll call, please?
Okay, Coiner.
Here.
Greenlee. Kefauver.
Here.
That's it, right? Meyer.
Here.
Peterson.
Here.
Powell. Schurz. Yay. Pratt. Walker. And.
Here.
Oh,
Okay.
and Whitmire.
Here.
All right, roll is complete.
Our roll call indicates that we have a quorum, so we will move forward with our business. Next on our agenda is approval of the January 20th meetings. It was a meeting. Anyhow, I would like you to take just a moment to take another look at your minutes, and I will entertain a motion for approval.
I move we approve them. Minutes.
It's been moved to approve. Is there a second?
I second that.
Okay, thank you. Hearing that, are there any questions before we do a formal vote? Hearing none, those approving the minutes indicate with yes.
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 Any negative or abstentions? They're passed. Thank you very much. We have members of the public present, and we will be addressing some of those members with a special award this afternoon. But are there other members of the public wishing to comment at this time? May come forward. And would you please identify who you are?
Sure, my name is Bill Handel. I'm a retired architect. I live in Nashville, Tennessee, but I've got deep ties in Davenport. I own a house here, and I've spent part of the year here. And
Thank you. I know with our procedure here, as with council, no, I wanted you to do that, but we have a 5-minute time frame in which to provide comments for us. Thank you.
Okay, it's pretty much just like addressing council, except
Exactly.
this one's at the beginning instead of at the end. I didn't expect that. So anyway, but I welcome it. So any of the last, since I guess 2014 now, yeah, it's been that long, when the river vision came out at that time, I got very interested in the Riverfront, which is the river, and Riverfront being probably our city's greatest asset, you know, without which we wouldn't even be here, probably in Decatur or something. But anyway, so again, I think it's the first meeting of this type that I've been at, and from what I can see, I think I have very high expectations of the group here. Obviously, the city's Parks Department. I grew up here. This is like one of the gems of our city. I mean, I remember it. I think when I was a little kid, I was reading somewhere that Davenport at that time had along with Dallas, Texas, I think were the #1 parks departments in the country. So it's great. Well, anyway, what I want to talk about right now, and it's somewhat uninformed, and maybe during this meeting I'll find more about it, the Arpa Plan. I guess the park that has been proposed for Main Street Landing, the playground or something that's been proposed, I have been very skeptical about it, and I know that the city has been trying to find some of the country's best designers to do that work, and perhaps that's something we'll be talking about today. And I think that's great. I mean, we've always done a good job of finding the best designers, be it when the library was done, Ed Stone, one of the best designers in the country, did the Kennedy Center, our police department building, the Maine Fire Department. I guess they had an architect out of Massachusetts. Terrific job. So anyway, that's a good thing. But if you've been, I guess it's appropriate gardening, you know. You know that a flower, probably the finest flower that you create, but if you put it in the wrong place, it becomes a weed. And so what I'd like everyone to consider that perhaps putting that playground in what's, I think, our city's living room, it would be equivalent of having the finest house, and you've got 30 rooms, but you choose to put your children's toys in the living room. You got company over. It just doesn't seem right when we've got all that land that's far away from the train tracks on Centennial Park. And I sure would like to see our splash park enhanced and made nicer. I saw a great one in Chattanooga about 7 or 8 years ago. It was wonderful. Ours is okay, but it could be better. I'd like to see that thing brought over to Centennial Park. Thanks so much.
Thank you, sir. Moving on at this time, we have no old business to work with today, and therefore, moving on to new business, we want to recognize our group of young people who are here today, and a leader, I believe, came with them, a chaperone, whatever. Anyhow, if you would come up to the podium, we have a certificate and a recognition for your trophy winning. So I'm expecting Ellen Jardin and Addison Walter, right?
Yeah.
Hi. Welcome. I hope all of you had a chance to do the visit to the conservatory at Vanderveer over the Christmas holiday season, because what you saw there were gingerbread houses, and that was a wonderful addition to all the beautiful flowers and things that you see there, especially the lights making it gorgeous. So what we are about is to present you with this sweet trophy that represents your winning first place in the 2021 Vanderveer's Gingerbread Village competition. And it was a battle of high schools, and the votes were, everyone who attended and visited had an opportunity to vote, and there were over 1,000 votes. Wow. So you should be pleased to have that public support on what you presented. So what we have is congratulations in that form, and this is an official congratulations from our mayor, Mr. Mattson, in that achievement. Where does your wonderful creation go from that hard work that you put in? And now it is being placed in February Learning Center. And did you know the house that you worked with and decorated, where it came from? Did you know that? Well, it was actually a gingerbread house that was used in conjunction with the Big Brothers Big Sisters annual putt contest. And so that's where it came from, and it nestled nicely into beautiful surroundings. So I hope you'll get to see it. And how much time do you think that you spent on it as a crew? I assume there are others that were part of it. How many were part of your team?
There was probably 10 of us. Yeah.
Wow. And how many hours do you think you put in?
I got sick like halfway through, so.
Well, you had to battle that business too,
Yeah.
right? Well, congrats on being able to be part of it.
Probably, I want to say 10 plus hours in work.
Well, your hard work paid off, and so I want to say congratulations, and I have a very cold hand, as you do. And so thanks, and I hope that you'll watch for other competition and be a part of it and represent your school as you did very proudly. So thanks a lot. And thank you, team. Thank
Like
you.
to do a couple pictures.
Wait, don't go away.
Okay.
I'm actually going to have that in the background, so you guys will face me.
Oh, thank you. You did get it in. Yes. it looks good enough to myself.
Congratulations.
Right?
My kids went to Assumption.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Because I'm always behind the camera. That's where I like it.
Yeah. So this is good.
All right. Big smiles. We're looking right here. 1, 2, 3. We're going to take a few more. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. We got a couple family ones.
All right.
Let me get out of the way.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Good job, you guys.
Go night. Great fun. Anyhow, wasn't that a fun presentation? And now, you know, we've had a long time in digesting information on the master plan. And so we have representative from Confluence, and we can do self, or Chad, did you want to do any introduction officially?
Yes. I do.
Okay.
Patrick Alford, principal with Confluence, is here again to give us a update, or actually the edits we've been working through, and you guys have got to contribute to those. The plan is 99.999% complete, and we are here today to answer any sort of final questions you guys have, field comments, and actually look for action to move it on to City Council for review. So barring any significant changes or concerns from you, that's what we'll do at the end after Patrick presents. But I will turn it over to him and let him do it.
Perfect.
Thanks,
Chad. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's been a couple months since I was last here, albeit in the library. I'm going to test the clicker and make sure we're good here. Today's an opportunity primarily for you all to ask questions about the document that I know you've reviewed. I hope that you've read it cover to cover, every word, hung on every misspelling and grammatical error and punctuation. I'm going to give a quick update kind of on what's happened since I was last before you. And then from there, we'll just go through a quick summary of the edits and changes that we made kind of quickly, and then reserve the balance of the time really to answer your questions and take notes. And as Chad alluded to, our goal here is for you to accept the plan this evening so we can take it to council and present once we polish off that last 0.0001% of the work. So with that, I'm gonna make it work here or not. Is it going? Okay. Weird. Sometimes they disconnect. It's funky. So in our last meeting in November, we kind of went through the overview of the plan. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going back over that again. We covered the general organization of the plan, which you've now been through. We looked at comments and themes, the things that we collected from the public input, and kind of those things that we identified as primary themes in the public comment, and thus for improvement and recommendation in the plan. We talked about level of service and where there were potential deficiencies, where we needed more parks and of what type. And then we generally spoke about the recommendations that we made. We can certainly get into those in more depth if you'd like. Since then, we completed the draft that you received electronically from staff and have had a chance to review that. And then we got comments back from staff really at the end of January, rather comprehensive. And so we've taken time and gone through it with a fine-tooth comb, and then started making updates to the plan prior to meeting with staff last week to go through each of their edits kind of one by one, talk about sort of the background information that led to that edit request, and what sort of the philosophy in making those changes were. And I can go through those here. With that, over the last week, we've now gone back and incorporated all of that into the document. We've got a couple sections that are missing from one of our consultants, which we expect to get either tomorrow or first part of next week. We'll get those incorporated, and it will be ready to go. So we're just waiting for that to wrap things up. We're here tonight, as I said, to answer your questions. We'll talk briefly about kind of the edits and changes. First and foremost, the 800-pound gorillas. There's always punctuation, spelling, grammatical errors that we don't catch. In this particular case, we were very quick to get the draft out without going through them. These have all been picked up now and incorporated back into the plan. We've made some minor graphic updates, have moved a couple of things around, changed some charts to make them a little bit more legible, introduced some others that weren't there. But it was generally information that was either a part of an appendix or already in the document that just needed to be enlarged so that it was more legible. Made a little text and formatting changes in some areas where it was a little bit bland in terms of the graphic punch in the wording, in the layout in the document, and then incorporated all the edits, which I'll go through here. I think one thing that's really important to kind of state right from the beginning is that there was questions about who this document is for. Is it a document that's for widespread public consumption, or is it a working document for staff? The answer is it's a little bit of both, but it's primarily a working document for staff. And so we agreed that we would add a statement of intent in the purpose and recommendation section that explained to the viewer or to the reader that, yes, there's a public front to this, which are those summary pages in the first couple of chapters, but the largest portion of this document is intended for staff to use as they execute this plan over the next 10 years. Okay? So that's been included. And then we made adjustments to the appendix. So going through the edits, I know these aren't going to be particularly legible for you, so I'll kind of go through them just one by one, but very quickly. We did some reordering of the themes on the page 16 in the first couple of chapters. We were asked to replace Jefferson Park as a project assessment example with Slattery, which is a little bit more activated. That was done. We added some narrative in areas where we just had single word identifiers so that there was more information provided. This is particularly in the strengths and needs section of the document where we identified just the bullet list of park system strengths and needs, and we've expanded on those within the document to provide a little bit more information for the reader. We've incorporated some summaries on chapters that were smaller into the main body, so it reduced some of the redundancy of the narrative in those chapters. We've worked with our consultant Pros, who was with us virtually in the meeting last week with staff, to clarify some questions with regards to benchmarking, particularly as it related to staffing levels in comparison to the other benchmark agencies. So those have been incorporated both into the benchmarking assessment, which is one of our appendices, but also some of that narrative is incorporated now into that summary page in the front portion of the document. Made a few other changes. We included some language about the Arpa projects in the front portion of the document. We've also identified within the recommendations and in the implementation matrix which projects are currently ARPA-funded projects, so that there's a very quick and easy identifier there, particularly as it relates to public interest and where that money is going and how it was incorporated into the plan. It's now readily available there. We've highlighted partnership programs within the program assessment, so that was something that was discussed in the program assessment, but it wasn't really elevated to sort of primary importance there, and that has been adjusted as well by the consultant or by our sub-consultant. And then we've made some deletions or some identifiers where, for example, First Tee is a program that we had identified as being managed by Parks, but it's not. So we've made those clarifications both in the narrative and in and in the matrix. Take some water here. We had a few other clarifying questions that Pros was able to answer for us during the meeting last week, and then made additional graphic changes and so forth. The highlighted section that you see on the right were a series of edits that that were identified and requested by the city finance manager as well as staff that we haven't fully incorporated back into the document yet because we're waiting on that revised funding and revenue strategies report from the subconsultant. Once we have that in hand, those will get added in and incorporated both in the chapter itself as well as in the recommendations and implementation matrix at the end of the document. 5-year CIP was added. We improved legibility and then corrected some carryovers and missing recommendations in the implementation matrix. That all happened in the main body of the document, and then in the assessments page, and this is probably where a good portion of the work happened, we've completely reordered Appendix A, which was the park assessment sheets. We've added a table of contents. We've grouped parks together a little bit more carefully so that anyone going to Appendix A to figure out what the assessment was for those particular park properties can now identify on which page is within that appendix they're located and get to them quickly. And so that's been done, and then there was some missing information in terms of potential improvements that have been added back in, as well as just some corrections to addresses and spelling and those sorts of things that we didn't catch in that draft form. So a fair amount has been done over the last week. Certainly, we've got just a little bit more to do, and then we'll put a bow on this and be ready to go. My assumption is once we get those changes, we'll send it back to staff, which I don't know, Chad, if you'll redistribute it to the group, but in an electronic version, but it'll be finalized and ready to go. So with that, we'll open it up for questions. I hope you came armed with plenty. I will do my best to answer them.
We'll open it to questions, so I'll watch and the floor.
All right.
Jerry? Yes. Great, thank you. Put your mic on. Okay, there you go. Thanks.
I didn't read this word for word, but I went through the whole 477 pages. And some of it, one thing I was talking to Chad earlier, that cost of 47% scares me. Mm-hmm. And then some of the things that that are in the golf courses that I think we're going in the right direction with that. Matter of fact, I think we're going in the right direction for the whole program. I think you got an excellent program here. Now it's the execution is where I'm more concerned than anything else.
Sure.
It's a great plan, but if we don't follow the plan, if we don't do all these things, and if we don't have the finances to do all this stuff, then what are we going to do? And that's the other thing that scares me a little. It doesn't scare me. I guess it puts a question in my mind is that we don't have a lot of money here, supposedly. And, and we're the city council. When you take this to the city council, that's where that's going to have to come from. And I guess my question to that is that going to happen? And I'll let you answer that now, and then I'll ask another question.
Yes, certainly the intent of any sort of planning process is to implement, right? We don't want to spend the bulk of our time and dollars and investment in a plan to let us sit on a shelf. So that's where it comes back to staff after you guys council accepts to then use the recommendations in it to push for the initiatives and the funding through our budgetary processes. So yeah, it's absolutely my intent and our team's intent to implement to the best of our ability the recommendations and everything in it.
What kind of a response do you think you're going to get from the city council? And who in the city council, hopefully, is saying, wow, what can we do here? There's a lot of things we can do here.
Yeah, I certainly can't speak to their mindset at this point, but I can tell you that there's several aldermen that have been really active in wanting to know more about the plan and are anticipating the plan. So I think, like anything, though, parks priorities, public safety priorities. I mean, there's a limited pot of money that the city has. We all recognize that, and it's up to council to set those priorities based on public feedback. This document gives us that public feedback, professionally manicured through a consultant and staff team. So hopefully, my hope is that it will be received well and utilized, and it will be our basis for our requests and justification as to why we are requesting certain funding things or different projects and that sort of stuff. So that's at least my hope and plan.
So the next thing is the arbitrary of all the parks. I know we've talked it all through that whole thing where they've taken trees out of a lot of the parks and they replace some. And I guess my question is that what do we do first? I know you're already doing some things already, especially with the golf course, at least that you and I just talked about. But then the park system, I know we've got it's said in there that, you know, there should be a plan of the time frame when all this equipment should be replaced at an ongoing basis. And I think you're already doing that to a certain point, aren't you? And so where is from the cities, from the park side, where are we going to start on this program for those kind of projects? Or are we already starting to, obviously? But if you get a short-range plan and a long-range plan, I know you have a long-range plan here now, but what is your short-range plan?
Yeah, so.
Like for this year and next year?
Right, so really, the plan from when it's accepted, we're really looking for implementation starting with our next fiscal planning cycle, so it'll be the fall. But if you notice in the recommendation strategies, there's a time frame and a priority list, so we'll, as staff, and working with you guys as well, we'll go back and sort of look at those high priority first year, second year sort of things and start looking to how we can implement and change and do that. As soon as the plan is accepted by council, we'll start that work.
Okay. I'll let somebody else talk
Other
for a
questions?
minute, but I may have a couple more.
Comments, questions at this point from others? Jody?
Yeah, on the recommendations, I looked at this over a month ago and haven't been able to pull it up due to internet issues. The recommendations, so where is new acquisitions for parks and facilities and maintenance? He's worked like 1 to 4 years or whatever. Can you refresh my memory on, because we have some very basic maintenance that's needed on 80% of the parks, and I'd just like to know where that would be, because I know it's expensive to replace the trash bin, but if that's got to be replaced, it should be one of the things we do that needs to be looked at and taken off the list.
I'm having a hard time following the question.
Okay, so on the recommendations, I believe page 57, I saw a new parks and I think some new facilities, whereas I saw maintenance was item number 4, but I didn't notice the years on 1 through 5 or whatever. So does this recommend maintenance to be done in years 1 through 5 and what needs to be done and what level that should be done on our current parks, not any new parks?
Yes, the plan specifies across the board that regular and routine, more consistent and regular maintenance be completed across all park facilities.
And does it recommend how many additional bodies we need in order to perform this?
No, it does not specifically call out the number of staff people needed to do that.
Okay. Okay, well, I think as a park advisory board, I think we would be remiss in accepting or saying acquiring new parks or new facilities should definitely be done in year 1 when we can't keep basic maintenance on some of our parks. You know, the basics is grills, picnic tables, trash receptacles, bathrooms, basketball courts. I think that our basic maintenance level needs to increase before we start acquiring new parks. If we can't keep the parks up to a certain level, getting new facilities is going to be difficult. And then my other question is on the regional park for Credit Island. Did the recommendation state to leave that and let that go to nature? Because I really have a hard time on a regional park that gets over 500 visitors a day, Monday through Friday, and almost 1,000 on the weekend, that we're not doing more to that park for daily visitors.
So, it doesn't specifically limit it to letting it go to nature, but it identifies opportunities to increase the naturalized area and remove some of the amenities that are very underutilized within that park.
Thank you. It's one area I think the advisory board really needs to look long and hard. The Frisbee golf isn't used, but to let that all go to nature, I just don't think it's the way to go. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to chime in real quick, just as a point of reference. Remember that at the end of the day, this is a planning document with recommendations, right? It does not, and council will not formally adopt it. They'll accept it that it's been done. Anything in it doesn't bind anybody long-term. So I just want to be cautious that we're not, like, I guess, getting down into the weeds, concerned about, like, operational tasks that we do on a day-to-day basis. Like, so just keep that in mind, that this isn't a thing that binds us long-term to any particular recommendation, right? It's a living document. It'll be adjusted and reviewed annually. So don't get caught up in sort of the weeds of really small operational things, if that makes sense. Look sort of bigger picture as to things.
But once it's in writing, it's kind of hard to undo sometimes. Just a suggestion is all. Thank you.
Fair enough.
Jerry, question? Comment?
Another part of the document had districts. You had an EMI's district, we had a Red Hawk district, and then you had a Duck Creek and I think it was the downtown district, the Riverfront district. And I kind of like what you did there, and the reason I say that, because there's poor people live out there in the west. They need more attention out that direction. And it kind of stated that, am I correct?
Yep.
So that means that we need to put more of an emphasis on this whole program to a certain point towards the west a little bit. Not only just the golf course with a new clubhouse, but to the trails that are all involved in that. And it's in there, it shows that. And like I said before, I think it all comes back down to the city. I mean, gosh, you could spend millions of dollars to get it all done right away. But, I mean, you're not going to be able to do that. I'm not even sure if 10 years is going to be able to do what you want to do here. But it's a start. So how did you come up with that information? I can't tell you what page number it was, but it was in there.
I think you're probably talking about the trail expansion in particular.
Are you talking about the districting?
Districting.
I'm going to let Betsy chime in, because that was actually something we were doing that Confluence just expanded on, but Betsy's team is responsible for that implementation.
Okay.
So recently, probably 2 years ago, under Chad's suggestion, actually, and it was a great one, and I'm not just saying that because he's my boss, but we separated our mowing crews and our custodial crews into districts and assigned them specific parks. So the Emice Park, for example, was mowed by the same crew week in and week out. We had done that modified prior to that, but really instituted that pretty strictly a couple of years ago, and have had real good success with that. The teams that are assigned to various parks own those parks, so to speak, and really, because they're there week in and week out, know the changes, can report any damage, that sort of thing. So that's been a very successful program. I will tell you that we are looking at modifying that a little bit for the 2022 season based on some finances. As you know, I have, and we all have pots of money that we work out of and try to pay our staff from. And we always have to get creative because that pot doesn't necessarily grow. So we want to become more efficient and also try to find ways to reward our staff. So we will be modifying that a little bit, but the concept is great. It's been very successful. The guys have bought into it. The guys and gals have bought into it, and we will continue that in the future.
I thought maybe in my one mindset I had was that Davenport hasn't built to the west, northwest, excuse me. And I thought, well, gee, maybe that's what they're thinking out. More out that way, because there's going to be probably, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind, there's going to be more housing out that way. There's going to be more industrial out that way, because I know they're talking about, especially on 280 and Locust Street, in that area right in there. And I mean, that has to incorporate some things that we in the park system would do. And that's what I was kind of thought that might be, not so much that, you know, you were breaking up your people. I mean, again, that kind of falls back into what you were just talking about. I was kind of looking at the whole picture of that and where that came from when he had that in his report, that's all.
Yeah, well, there is a component of that, right? Because I think from a community standpoint, the next big development area will be west of, you know, the west end of Davenport. That's where the opportunity lies. And obviously, if and when that occurs, there'll be opportunities for additional parkland acquisition and different things that the Parks Department will have to meet the needs of that new community, so.
Be like Prairie Heights and
Right.
in those areas like that.
Yeah,
That
like
was all new.
as North grew, Prairie Heights was added to the system,
Yeah.
Jersey Farms more recently. So, yes, when development occurs to the west side of Davenport, we will keep a careful eye on how to deliver additional park amenities and services to that
So
end.
when-
But again, to Jody's point, you know, the short term, and a little to your point, Jerry, the short term sort of goals are really to look at our, you know, maintenance of our existing facilities and address a lot of the recommendations
Yeah.
of our existing parks that need to be brought up to a standard or just improved upon or replacement of amenities. So, right, before we really look long and hard about new parkland acquisition and what that impact will be to our operations without, you know, additional operating funds from the general fund, that would be a challenge to bring those on. So Jody was absolutely right in pointing that out, so.
Okay.
Thank you. When Jody mentioned maintenance, I got stuck, so to speak, and it alludes to your comments also, on those pages 34 on from expanding and creating new park and improve recreation and community facilities. And my impression at this point was, boy, we have been limping along for a really long time in bringing up our parks on the whole to a basic standard that we would accept for quality opportunities for our citizens. And so what my thought is, what can we do to make the public aware of how important it is to address maintenance? And I don't know what to say about it, except when you look at, it's probably meeting accessibility and ADA requirements is at the top of practically every one of the first listings of recommendations for the parks. And the public may not understand that importance. They're looking for more doodads, you know, like new playground equipment. Yes, that will be replaced, but we've got a serious need for maintenance, and it costs dollars, and it doesn't really look like much on the long run. So what I don't know how we do it. I guess I'm going to identify it. It's a challenge, and it should remain priority one, but how can we let the public engage and embrace that improvement and how it is, we see it throughout. Other questions, comments? Jerry?
I only have one more. You just did an excellent job. And I look forward to pushing on to the city council.
That is a comment. I hear nothing. Other one? Okay, yeah. Please. Oh, excuse me.
I don't know. It said in there that the public comments were generally positive about the condition of the parks. I'm kind of hearing a fair amount of negativity about the condition of the parks from this board, which I don't necessarily feel. I visited like 20 parks in the last year, and I mean, obviously not everything's in mint condition, but I don't think I saw a single broken piece of playground equipment. But I guess as someone that visits parks all over the country, are we about on average for maintenance and upkeep of our parks, or below average or above average? I didn't see that kind of benchmark comparison in there. I know it's always apples and oranges, but.
Sure. And it's not something that we would ordinarily look at specifically in a benchmark comparison, but based on our experience, I would say you're about on par. Most agencies within the Midwest, which is kind of where we operate, struggle with the same thing, particularly, a system of your size where you have a lot of facilities and things generally speaking, when you have the multitude of facilities that you do, your cycle of replacement and a limited budget, your cycle of replacement tends to consume most of that budget and take away from that regular and routine maintenance, right? So staff's able to do what they can to keep things open and operational and in as best a condition as possible. But what you see then over time is that continued replacement and upgrade of new equipment, being sort of the public front of that, okay, we're maintaining because we're replacing. But, when we look across the system, what we see is structures, benches, amenities within the park, site furnishings, those sorts of things start to deteriorate over time because they're not the highest priority when we need playgrounds and swing sets and ball fields and that sort of thing. A long way of getting around to saying you're very much, in the realm of all of your benchmark peers in terms of what's being maintained, what's not. And I would think the most important thing to remember is your team here is doing it with far fewer people than a lot of the benchmark agencies that we looked at are. And Davenport has more acreage than even the top agencies that we looked at from a benchmarking perspective. So theoretically, we should have considerably more staff here doing the work of maintaining the system than we do. So all kudos to the superheroes that work, in Parks and Recreation for being able to do what they can within the system.
I'm glad that you made the comments that you did. I didn't mean by my comments that it's deplorable.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's not what I'm meaning. It's just that is a critical need to keep maintaining while at the same time trying to balance adding new things. I think one of the interesting things was the recommendation to address Lafayette Park and move the playground equipment away from where it is and move it back and bring in a historical kind of thought about its longevity and being the first park. That's what we need to see in all the parks. So it's just booming, but maintenance is the high piece, so how do we find that balance? So that's, I guess, the staff's challenge, and we'll go rah, rah, rah when we get reports on this has happened and this has happened. So that's what I intended by that comment.
That perfectly answered what I was looking for, and I think it gives us points. Each of us was appointed by an alderman, so we assume have some sort of connection to that alderman, and we can get back to them and point out our parks are doing more with less than our peers, and why are we putting us in that situation, and why are our parks less important than parks in our peers' cities? and lean on them to fund the Parks Department more. And hopefully our former member that's now on the council will be well into that mindset. But I think we can definitely, report back to our older people and ask them for more funding for parks. I mean, obviously, public safety is important, but so are parks and recreation.
Thank you.
Yes, far into the sunny climate. Hi, comment? Jody?
Jody looks to be muted.
No? Oh, she's talking, but we can't hear her. She doesn't seem to be.
Okay, I think I got it. Okay, real quick. My assessment was done based on the appendices, and I went and I did a checklist off of every park, and I just saw some repeat things that needed to be taken care of. I think if we could get the funding, we could get a lot of those parks brought up. And I agree with whoever made that. We don't have enough personnel, and that's got to be addressed. When you can't mow a regional park and you let it go because we don't have enough personnel, there's just something wrong with the mix. And I'm preaching to the choir, to the staff. You guys are aware of it more than anybody. But to me, I don't think this hits it hard enough to the city council the way I think we should. And that's just my comment. I think I love our parks. I go to the parks a lot. But when Thunderbrook doesn't get mowed or burn off for 4 or 5 years, and we can't do it regularly, then we have an issue with labor. And that's it.
Okay. Jerry?
I'll just make one comment, what she just said, and I've said this before, is that, we're having a lot of problems getting people to come work for the city. And I'm preaching to them again about what they get paid. And I'll be honest with you, those people do just as much work, and sometimes probably more than other people that work for the city. And they're getting paid half the amount. You solve that issue, you won't have the problems you got. Okay.
We're kind of at a point where I think staff is saying, yes, we're hearing this, and I think it's maybe time to see how we stand with acceptance to council. I love the charge that maybe we have a new charge of making sure that our council members hear more from Parks and Rec about their need to support what we have spent a lot of time and effort on in this plan. So when we get to that point where it will be going to council, I think it would be good that we all know and maybe have a nice short statement that we can contact our council members with before the vote or presentation. That might be one strategy, but there might be others. So saying that, do I hear a motion to approve the master plan as presented?
I move that we approve the master plan as presented. I think it's a great thing. We've needed it for years. And as Chad said, it's a living, moving document. Things will be included, things will be added, things will be deleted. So we can discuss it for years, but we need to approve it and get it rolling so we can keep it going.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the master plan so it may go forward to council. Those stating approval, please signify with yes.
Yes.
Yes. And
Yes.
we will, do we need to have an individual call? No, okay. Those not accepting or abstaining, please indicate now. We will, hearing nothing in that agenda, we will move forward with the master plan to City Council. And thank you for all the effort at this point, and we'll look forward to revisions, final drafts on the things that you spoke about.
Yeah.
Okay? Thank you. That's a lot of work, and I'm going, oh, I hope they're feeling good. We have staff reports, and you had an opportunity to read those in our packets. Are there comments or questions to staff with the reports? We're looking them over.
Wendy, can I
I hear
just?
none. Yeah, I wanted
just-
to make sure that you had a.
Yeah, I don't
included
have
that.
much to report. I
Okay,
just wanted to
okay.
follow up on
Good.
just a couple things real quick. Just for point of reference, tentatively, this is set for a council work session with the first cycle in March. Once I have that actual date, I'll let you know. Now, work sessions, they're open to the public, but there's no public comment at that point. It's where Patrick will come and actually present similarly the plan, the highlights to council, and we'll answer questions. And then from there, it'll be and then actual agenda cycle sometime in April for them to accept the plan. So that's sort of just the timeline going forward, so you know. Secondly, I wanted to note in the back here, you may have noticed another staff person that you don't recognize, but Courtney Jones is our administrative services manager. I always mess up that title, and she works primarily out of the city administrator's office on third floor, but Courtney is going to work with our department for the next year to actually implement some of the planning processes we're doing, including the master plan and some of our other strategies and processes and other things that the leadership team doesn't necessarily get to because of day-to-day operational duties. So we're happy to have Courtney. She actually started with the city in the Parks Department and has moved up and is coming back to work with us. So she'll be at future meetings, and from time to time she may have some reports for you guys. So just wanted to introduce Courtney. And that's all I have. I'll leave the rest of the time for you guys to answer or ask questions to staff, or me.
Well, I've got something. It's just on the map for the ARPA projects. It mentions Jefferson, but that isn't one. Did that get deleted at some point, or?
So Jefferson is on hold because we didn't identify a specific project. The intent is to move forward at some point we really need to have a neighborhood sort of meeting regarding Jefferson because it's such a, I think, robust need for improvement to that park, and what that looks like, staff has struggled to sort of identify. Now that we have some recommendations in the plan as well, we can talk to the neighborhood about said improvements, but it will be brought back online at some point, but it's been tabled for now.
Good, good. Jerry?
In the documents, they talked about doing more advertising and to tell everyone what we're doing out here. Are we going to get more and more involved with that then too, right away?
You as a park advisory board or the department?
As a department.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you were volunteering, Jerry. Yeah, actually, you'll see some in future meetings, some more. Becca's working pretty diligently on a master marketing plan for the department as well as individual strategies for program areas. So as that gets developed here in the next couple months, we'll bring that forward to you guys to look at. But yes, that is a top priority of the department.
I noticed in our new book that just came out, they did mention the golf course in there at the back of that. And I think that was great. I mean, there wasn't much there. I'd like to have seen maybe a half a page, just add on to the book, maybe next year.
Sure.
More stuff of what's going on in the golf courses.
Yeah, everybody wrestles for print space, so we work to set different priorities, but I think golf, should probably move forward a little bit. So.
Thank you.
Krista?
I wanted to say that.
Hear me?
I wanted to say that the project and the plan is amazing, in depth, and I took the time to read it. So I just want to say that I'm looking forward to the edited version, especially the partnerships. I think that's going to be great with bringing money towards implementing the projects or bringing people onto them. I just wanted to mention this to Chad. I know I wanted to mention this to everyone, but I think it'd be great for not only a visual representation, like a color-coded map based on whether something's like the Levy Commission or ours or Public Works, and I think that that will really help people to move forward on who to contact about things. You know, just something as simple as that, just like we have in our maps, our ward representation thereof. That's all I want to say on that. Thank you.
I had one question in regard to the large logs. My question just is, being nature play area being planned, and I wanted to know who is in part of that planning process. You know, is there a group, or is it a project of friends, or the Credit Island group? Please let me know that.
Yeah. So Wendy's referring to the Nature Playground addition to Credit Island. So we have recently contracted with Shive Hattery to do design on that. We will have, yes, engagement with the Friends of Credit Island as well as neighborhood. Usually we draw on a quarter mile, half mile, probably go a little bit bigger since Credit Island's a larger park radius. So yeah, there'll be some input processes coming up with that. But we have just started with the contract. We haven't had the kickoff meeting with the consultant team yet, but we will.
Will those meetings be open
Oh, yeah.
to the public, and let the board know when that is
Yeah, when
happening?
when they're
Okay.
set, we do our advertising. We'll let you know for sure. Yep.
That is something that is good in remarks to the conversion of Credit Island maybe to more nature. That might be the next step that isn't just going back to just flora and fauna. So, the more information we can have out, the better off I think we'll be. Other questions? Comments? Well, hearing none, we have kind of had advisory time. Do we have a report from the Riverfront Improvement Commission, Chris?
Yes, they got back to having meetings. We heard a presentation from the Friends of Veteran Memorial Park and Zach Peterson with the city, and they're moving forward with some real large visual construction work coming basically as soon as the weather breaks to Veterans Memorial Park. There's going to be an overlook in the shorter term and kind of an expanded plaza area. I'll see if I maybe can forward the whole group some of the renderings and stuff that they showed, because it's really, and then there's some later phases that are much bigger plans, including like a separate parking area and a separate driveway specifically for Veterans Memorial Park. And at the same meeting, they had an item with Mid-American has power lines going right through the north end of Veterans Memorial Park, and instead of having like every 10 or 20 years payment to the city for running lines through their park, they wanted just like a permanent easement. And so there was quite a bit of discussion over whether that would interfere with future plans for Veterans Memorial Park, but it seems like they'll be able to work something out. And then there was a little bit, I think I had mentioned in the past, there were going to be 2 days where both cruise ships were going to be at River Heritage Park. And I guess there's only just going to be 1 day in October where both the Viking ship and the American Cruise Lines ship will be there at the same time. But that still should be quite a photo op, I think, for having 2 of those modern ships pulled right up there. And then they seem pretty excited about a Tuesday bags or cornhole event in the Quinlan Court. Yes, I always want to call it Quinlan Commons. Quinlan Court, the new fancy parking lot down there along the riverfront. So they're really trying to program that new area extensively. Yeah, that's, I believe, all I've marked down to refer to this group.
Any questions? Hearing all that action happening. Do you know when the cornhole thing is happening? Did they, I mean, we can
I
figure.
don't. Chad might know.
Fall.
Oh, okay, I'm fall thing.
Oh, right, cool. Thank you very much. Any other comments, questions? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn this session today.
Can we do a quick intro on our new
Yeah, I
advisory
want to do
board
that.
member, please?
Hello. He's been the man way over in the corner. Yes, when introductions were made for our new staff member, I thought, oh, we got to get Anthony introduced as well. He is our new representative of the mayoral appointment, and it is Anthony Whitmire. Would you like to introduce yourself just briefly, you know?
Yeah, sure. How long would you like me to go?
Well, yeah, no, no,
I'll keep it short.
please do, yeah, that's good.
Yep. Hello, everyone. I'm Anthony. Excited to be here. I'm really impressed with the vision plan, and I think it's kind of really good timing that as I start this process, I'm kind of able to see where, you know, the Parks Board wants to be headed in the next 10 years. I'm a teacher at Davenport Central currently. I coach basketball and girls golf as well. I was previously at Assumption for a few years, but I've been a resident of Davenport now for 12 years. I went to St. Ambrose and I stuck around, and this is where I call home now, and I don't plan on getting out anytime soon. So I'm the mayoral appointee, but I live currently in Ward 5, but I'm actually moving on Tuesday up to Ward 8. As far as parks, I like to use the trails, the golf courses, the dog parks, a little bit of everything.
Welcome to the group, and you'll know more about us as we meet each month. And speaking of meeting each month, we still need to vote on approval of passing the turn the lights out, yes, from this meeting. Those signifying yes, yes, Jerry?
Oh, I just want to welcome Anthony, especially towards his background in golf. I think that's going to be a big help here.
True now.
Maybe we'll have to reconsider.
I had grandkids go through Assumption, so and Central. So anyway, congratulations, and we're glad you're aboard. Thank you.
Krista, did you motion? Yes?
I was motioning, yeah.
Okay, I thought so. Okay. It's been moved by Krista to adjourn the meeting.
Adjourn to move forward.
Did a second come through?
I'll second.
Okay, second. Those saying let's adjourn, say yes.
Yes.
I think that's unanimous. So we'll see you on March 17th here in the council chairman. That's St. Patrick's Day, so come in green, right? Thanks, everybody.